There are three social and economic impacts of the new funding cuts on Africa. But let's take a step back. In January 2025, there was an executive order signed by the President of the US to realign the US's foreign aid to different countries across the world. For Africa as a continent, a quarter of the funding and foreign aid that we get comes from the United States. With the exception of Eritrea, every African country is dependent on the US for aid. Thus, a cut in aid has significant effects. Firstly, the financial loss and economic contraction from less activities and social services which most of the US funding supports. The second effect or impact is on employment. There are many in Africa employed in the NGO sector and in the supply of social services, meaning without funding to support those services, those people will be out of work. The third effect is probably the most significant and the saddest. That's the human toll, and in some cases, mortality. Many vulnerable populations are dependent on foreign aid and humanitarian assistance. Persons living with disability, refugees, displaced populations, and so many others will be affected because most of the social services on housing, shelter, even feeding in some instances are heavily dependent on aid from the US. These impacts are significant and herald a level of economic suffering that Africa is currently unprepared for.